The story of Winnie Lufunja was that of a young girl from Zambia who was said to have died after a brief illness in 2016 and then buried 4 days later by her family, only for her to show up at her house 2 years later looking lost and tattered. Now, when this girl showed up at her house, she told her family that, "Hey, I'm home." And they were like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "I'm Winnie Lufunja, your daughter." And they were like, "Excuse me, Winnie died 2 years ago and she has been buried, so who are you?" And the girl said, "I don't know who you people buried, but I am Winnie Lufunja and I am not dead." And for some reason, maybe this girl really looked like Winnie Lufunja, but the family did not have any reason to doubt. I mean, who doesn't want their dead loved one to come back alive? Who doesn't want to open the door and see a loved one who has died standing at the door to tell them that he or she isn't dead? Isn't that the dream of everybody who has ever lost someone they love, for their loved ones to return and tell them that, "Hey, it was all a prank, hey, it was all a dream"? And so the family took this girl in, still having their doubts but hoping that this is for real. The story was quick to get press coverage as many people showed up in the Winnie Lufunja's house to see what was happening. You know, there were rumors that Winnie Lufunja is back. The girl who died 2 years ago and was buried is now back home, and it's like we've never seen this kind of thing before. Immediately, the police were involved and they were baffled at this situation. The family were like, "Yeah, she kind of looks like our daughter, but you know, we're not very sure because we actually buried our daughter. She died. It wasn't as though she died of an accident or she disappeared and she was found dead. She was sick in a hospital for a long time and then she died and was buried. Now, she's showing up at our doorstep telling us that she didn't die and that the person that we had buried was a banana tree." The police did the right thing. They took her DNA samples and her family DNA samples for testing to see, you know, what this was about. At the same time, they were asked to check the grave of Winnie Lufunja to be sure who they had buried, or to be sure if indeed it was a banana tree they had buried like this girl is claiming, or just to be sure who was in it. Although the girl was asked where she had been all this while and, you know, what had happened to her in the past 2 years that she was gone, and Winnie said that she was abducted and taken to a business working place, a compound that looked like a farmland, to work for free like a slave. It was almost as if she was hypnotized and brainwashed where she was and held spellbound like many other people who were also in the working place. She said that they had to work in a farmland, cultivate and, you know, make production for whoever these people were, because she said she didn't know who they were and she didn't even remember how she got there, but she remembered that there were more people there and she had to work and there were people controlling them. And she also recognized that she was spiritually held spellbound. She was mentally held spellbound. She was brainwashed where she was. And so when asked how she escaped, she said that at a particular point in time, she gained herself, she gained consciousness. It was almost as if the spiritual bound that they had on her vanished for a moment and she was able to realize herself. And there were also a few other people there who also got released instantly from the spell that they had been casted, and that was when they realized that, okay, where am I, what am I doing here? And with that instant they escaped, and somehow in the streets of Zambia this girl was able to find her way back home to her family, to tell them that this is how it has been for the past 2 years. When I first heard the story, my first thought was maybe the hospital where Winnie Lufunja had died had switched her body or had sold Winnie Lufunja to a group of people who were looking for, you know, cheap labor, and had replaced her body with someone that looked like her for burial. That was my first thought. That was the thing that came to my mind. I was like, you know, because the parents claimed that it was the hospital that pronounced her dead and gave her to them for burial. But then again, awaiting the DNA result was something that was important. And as it turned out, the DNA result was released. Now, before the DNA results came afterwards, because this took like weeks before the result was released, another family who had heard the news of a girl who had come back to life was able to identify this girl as their own daughter who was missing. And just like that, they quickly made their way to where Winnie Lofunja was, and they were like, this girl is our daughter. And the girl was like, I don't know you people. This is my family. Yeah, I am Winnie Lofunja, and this is my mother, this is my uncle, this is my brothers. This girl began to name all the relatives by their names and surnames. So it was almost like at this point, everyone was convinced that this was indeed Winnie Lofunja, because she knew her mother's name, she knew her father's name, she knew her uncle's name, she knew some of her relations who weren't even around at the time. So this girl knew these people. And so when this second family came to claim that this Winnie Lofunja is not Winnie Lofunja but their own daughter, who I don't know the name they called, it was like, okay, what is going on here? What is happening? And of course, the police also took DNA samples from this new family. At the same time, the family had to go to the grave where they had buried Winnie Lofunja 2 years ago in 2016 to dig it up and see if there was someone there, or see if it was a plantain tree like the girl had claimed, or see if it was a banana tree like the girl had claimed. And when they dug it up and opened the coffin, they saw bones. Someone had been buried there. And when they checked, the bones had follicles of hairs which identified it as a female. So someone was buried there. It wasn't a plantain tree. There was a human being in that casket. So who is that person they had buried? If that person was not Winnie Lofunja, then who is she? And if that person buried there was Winnie Lofunja, then who is this girl in their home claiming to be Winnie Lofunja with all the details and information of the family and their background and their history? How did this girl know all these things that only Winnie Lofunja would have known? Many weeks later, the police came with the DNA test results, and it was proven that this girl who is claiming to be Winnie Lofunja was not Winnie Lofunja, and that she was indeed the daughter of the second family who had come to claim her. And of course, that settles the issue. The girl was given back to her family, even though she still claimed that she did not know who they were, and it might have taken her time to maybe gain back that memory of who this family is. But all she knew was that she was Winnie Lofunja, and that Winnie Lofunja's family was her family. Of course, this settles the case, this settles the story. The girl goes back to her family and everybody kind of move on. But the truth is, there's still so much mystery here, so much unanswered questions. If she isn't Winnie Lofunja, how did she know about Winnie Lofunja's parents? How did she know her relatives? How did she know the address? Because she left the place she was held captive and found her way to Winnie Lofunja's house without being directed, knocked at the door and says she is Winnie Lofunja, identified every single member of the family by their name and last name, both their relatives. So how did she know all these things if she isn't Winnie Lofunja? The place that she claimed she was abducted to, she also said that they brainwashed her. So did they brainwash her and give her a new identity? And if they did, how did these people or this unknown corporation know about Winnie Lofunja, and where did they get all the details from, and how did they put it into her head to change her identity to make her think she was someone else? This feels like a sci-fi movie, one of those movies where people's identity are switched, one of those movies where people's brain are washed and replaced with the identity of someone else. I mean, you only see these kinds of things in the movies. It's funny that this story just died down after it had been solved, because to me this is an unsolved mystery and I am so curious to know how this could actually happen. I feel like there is some part of the story that is not being told. I feel like we still need to know how this girl got to know Winnie Lofunja so well, up to her family members, even to her address, despite the fact that the family could confirm that there was no previous knowledge of who this girl was, that they had never seen her before until now, and they weren't even sure if she probably knew who Winnie Lofunja was before she died. Maybe that could have been the connection. Maybe she knew the original Winnie Lofunja so well, but you know, if she did know her so well to the point of knowing her family members, the least that could happen is that her family members could have recognized her sooner, that, oh, you are Winnie Lofunja's friend or something. But they didn't see her like that. They didn't know who she was. She probably looked like Winnie Lofunja so well that they were like almost convinced that this was their daughter who had died 2 years ago. Although this story might seem to have been resolved, I still feel that there is so many unanswered questions. And honestly, if you think you have the answer, I would like to hear your thoughts on this story. Feel free to share your thoughts on this story, and if you are from Zambia where this story happened, it will be nice to hear your thoughts on it. What is the best possible explanation as to how this strange girl knew so much about a dead girl that she had to assume her identity to the point that she couldn't even remember her original background? I would like to know how that is possible. I would like to know how I can be brainwashed to the point where I think I am someone else and know the person's name, family, address, and think I'm even that person all the way. And even when my own original family comes, I can't recognize them, regardless of the DNA result. It's just really shocking, and frankly, I would like to know where this girl is now. I would like to hear her story. I would like to know if she still remembers anything since this story was published. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification button so whenever there is a new video, you will get notified. Thank you for watching.